detaching from the outcome is the only way to hit 100K a month, because 100K a month, like, it's not just about the strategy and the tactics and all that sort of action stuff, right? Like, it's not really just about getting more leads, running more ads, or doing more sales calls. Obviously, like, it's a big part of it, of course, like, that's what's actually going to make the money. But the real reason most people break before they get there is because their nervous system cannot handle the pressure of that level. Okay, they basically become obsessed with the outcome. Right, they start needing clients to close, they start needing ads to perform, and they start needing the month to go a certain way. Okay, and the second you need the physical plane to confirm your identity, that's when you lose. Okay, that's when you never ever get there, because now you're no longer operating from what you actually control. Right, you're operating from this pressure and tension in your body, and that pressure, that's what makes you stupid, right? That's what makes you needy, reactive, and collapse into your old identity. So in this video, boys, I'm basically just gonna explain why detaching from the outcome is literally one of the biggest unlocks to getting to 100K a month with your agency. Okay, it's not just gonna be in some, let go and then do nothing type of way. Okay, it's gonna be in a way where you stop worshiping the outcome and start being the person who can actually hold that amount of money every single month. Okay, because I see this like literally all the time with mentees, and especially like agency owners in general. Like, you say you want to build a real agency and you want to hire the right people and everything, but the second you start acting in alignment with that, you become obsessed with seeing the results immediately. And that's why you might start running ads, and then you check the ads literally every single day, like how much you're spending, because you need this thing to work. And you might even spend money on hiring a UGC to do like a pretty good VSL and build a funnel, literally everything like that. And then once you launch it, you start walking around with this pressure in your chest saying like, this needs to work, it needs to work. And that is exactly why like it doesn't work. Okay, not because like the strategy of the ads and the funnel and stuff doesn't work, and not because like scaling isn't possible, whatever, but it's simply because they're so attached to the physical outcome that they cannot operate properly within, right? It's just constantly spinning in their thoughts and their mind that this needs to work, right? And this is the thing that most people don't actually understand. Okay, when you are so obsessed with the outcome, you create this pressure within yourself, right? And when you create that sort of pressure and get that tension in your body, your nervous system goes straight into survival mode. And when you're kind of in that survival mode, that's when you stop making clean decisions. Okay, you start making emotional decisions, and that's when you start over adjusting, over iterating, start forcing things to try and work them, and maybe change the plan too early, and then you eventually just go back to what feels familiar and safe, right? And that's basically your nervous system trying to get back to what feels safe and familiar. Okay, and this can be you starting to run ads, you spend $200-300, not get a single lead, and then you just turn it off and go back to doing cold SMS or cold email, because that's what felt safe and less risky, and you had that proof in your mind that it actually works. And so the way I look at reality, the external reality, is very, very simple. Okay, your physical reality is simply just a mirror. Okay, the money you have, the amount of clients, the Stripe screenshots, like the amount of booked calls, the results you're getting with ads, the team you got in place, like literally everything, all of that is the physical plane, which is basically the external reality, which is the mirror, right? But most people, they try to change the mirror directly before changing what's in front of the mirror, if that makes sense. And so they look at Stripe and think to themselves like, why isn't it higher? Like, why is it not saying 100K a month? Why is it only like 5 or 10K a month, right? And then they look at their ads and they think like, why are they not more booked calls than this? And the more they stare at that mirror, the more pressure they create within themselves that this needs to work. But the thing is that the external results you have right now in the agency is not the cause, right? The cause is who you are being, right? And what state you're operating from on a daily basis and what actions you're taking. And the physical reality is just mirroring exactly that right now, because the universe is simply just mirroring your state, which is basically your energy and your thoughts you're having on a day-to-day basis, and also your actions. And that's why alignment is so damn important, because the universe just simply rewards alignment. And that's why it's so important that you align your state, your thoughts, and actions with a version of you that's already at 100K a month. Because when you feel like you're already at 100K a month right now, suddenly you start thinking differently, right? You think bigger, and you don't care about some, a couple clients snagging on Slack at all, because it's a part of the game when you're doing bigger numbers, right? And you start having these thoughts you would have at 100K a month, essentially. So just like, how am I going to get to like 150, 200K a month, right? How to remove myself even more from the day-to-day, and what hires do I need to make? And then you start acting in congruence with it, all right? So you, for example, start mapping out the roadmap, for example, the step-by-step actions that within that you need to actually take to get to that level. So when you start mapping out that roadmap, for example, of getting to 100 to 200K a month and so on, that's the signal you send to the universe, simply because your state and your actions are aligned with the 100K a month version of you. And that's when things start unfolding, okay? But this is where most agency owners get stuck, okay? And honestly, the majority of you are just emotional fucking pussies, right? Like, I was one of those myself, right? Because you let the physical reality tell you who you are. If ads are working, then you feel like the man, you know, like things are going good and shit. But if the ads are not converting after 3-4 days after launch, if you get emotional, I think that you're failing completely, right? And another one can be like, if you check Stripe and you see that you have a really big week, you know, you feel really good about it, you know, confident and everything. And then the next week you don't get a single sale and you start doubting everything, right? Same goes if clients in the backend are happy, you know, you kind of feel safe, you feel like happy and shit. But if one client complains or starts nagging on Slack, you spiral emotionally, right? So your identity is constantly being controlled by the current outcomes. And that is a terrible place to fucking operate from, because now you're not leading the agency. The agency is basically leading your emotional state. And so you've basically become a puppet, and the agency is the puppeteer, when in reality it should be the completely opposite way. And this is where the imbalance thing comes in, okay? Because when you put too much importance on an outcome, you create imbalance, right? You make it too heavy and you make it mean too much, right? You start justifying it. And so you go from I'm running ads and, you know, improving the machine and everything to these ads needs to work or I'm completely fucked. The agency is gonna burn down to zero essentially. Another one can be like, I'm systemizing my 100K a month agency to I need to hit 100K a month this month, or, you know, I'm going to be behind, this is going to go wrong, this, that, I'm going to feel like a failure, people will judge me and so on. So now the outcome has so much emotional charge, and when the outcome has too much emotional charge, you just simply can't act normally, right? You can't review numbers calmly, and you can't lead your team calmly, and your patience as well is just scattered, right? So you don't have the time to wait for ads to work, because you need them to work instantly, right? Every little setback feels like a threat essentially. And so if you have one day where you pull in, you know, 10-15 leads from the ads, and then the next day you get 0, then you emotionally spiral. And even just one client complaining can feel like the whole agency is, you know, collapsing essentially. And that is basically emotional volatility, okay? And that's 100K a month. It basically requires the complete opposite, right? It requires you being calm, collected, and in control, right? It requires being able to actually hold the pressure without immediately reacting to it, okay? Because a lot of shit is gonna go wrong, especially when you're scaling to these bigger numbers. Because the thing is, like, 100K a month is not gonna be less pressure than being at 5, 10, or 20K a month, right? Indeed, it's gonna be way, way more pressure, right? Way more leads, you know, there's gonna be way more client calls. There's gonna be way more sales calls, you know, clients, people to fulfill for, team members, payroll, even just ad spend as well is gonna be way, way bigger. And you're gonna be facing problems at scale essentially. And there's gonna also be way more people depending on you. So if your nervous system can barely handle spending $100 a day, how do you think you're gonna handle spending 1K a day on ads, right? And if you can barely handle one client complaining, where you're at right now, how do you think you're gonna handle 30 clients giving you negative feedback, right, and complaining at once? And if you can barely handle, you know, 1K in payroll expenses, for example, how the fuck are you gonna handle 30K a month in team costs, right? And this is why scaling exposes people, right? Because the problem is not that, you know, they don't want the money. Everybody wants the money. The problem is that they cannot handle the pressure that comes with the version of the agency they say they want, okay? And that's why they sabotage back to the level their body recognizes and feels safe and familiar at. And so that's why you go back to cold outreach, because it feels controllable and it feels safe and that it actually works, you know? And so that's why you stop the ads, and that's why you don't hire or delegate to people and do payroll, because payroll is gonna feel unsafe, right? It feels very unfamiliar. And that's why you also don't delegate, because losing control feels unsafe to you. And then they wonder why they stay stuck, right? But the thing you have to realize is that your nervous system is not calibrated for that next level yet, okay? And this is why detachment matters so damn much, okay? Because detachment, it's not just some I don't care mindset, right? Being able to truly detach from stuff is how you stop letting some outcome hijack your emotional state on the day-to-day basis, okay? Most of your stress doesn't come from the work itself, right? It comes from mentally living in the outcome on a day-to-day basis. And that's why when you, for example, are gonna run ads, you're a bit stressed because you're thinking to yourself, like, what if I spend money and nothing comes back, right? And some of you as well might be scared to scale because deep down, you know that when I onboard more clients and they don't get results and they end up churning, what if they ask for a refund and dispute me and all that stuff, okay? Because at scale, it will basically expose how weak your backend actually is. And so your mind is constantly projecting into the future and creating imaginary pressure. And then you bring that pressure into the present moment. Like, there's always going to be a very clear next actionable step. But when you obsess over the outcome, you skip the present moment and start drowning in the future. What do I actually mean by detaching from the outcomes, right? Because it doesn't mean that you just stop caring or, stop having goals, or that you just think that, you got to sit around and let the universe take care of things, okay? That's coping, right? Real detachment is basically you being deeply committed to the vision, but not emotionally dependent on today's outcomes. Like, you know where you're going, but you stay focused on the next action that's aligned with that vision. Like, you still want the results, but you don't need the results to regulate your emotional state. And that's the difference. Now, I do want to make this a bit grounded too, okay? Because some people hear that you need to detach from the outcome, and then they use it as an excuse to basically ignore reality and the outcomes they were getting on the ads, for example. And that's not really what I'm saying, right? Like, if you're running ads, but you don't have a setter, you don't have any follow-up process, any VSL, a landing page, like no tracking in place either, like no real sales system behind it, of course you're gonna feel the pressure, right? Because deep down, you know that the system itself isn't ready. And the same goes like if you're signing clients, but the fulfillment process lives in your head and there are no actual SOPs, no ClickUp, no GHL snapshots, no onboarding process that's like actually productized, of course, more clients is gonna feel completely unsafe to you. Because more clients actually does mean more chaos at that point. So detachment does not mean ignoring the operational side of things, but it means you stop obsessing over the outcome and start building the operation that can carry the outcome that you actually want, which can be the 100K a month, for example. And that's the whole game, right? If you want 100K a month, you have to build the machine that can hold 100K a month. Like dialing in the sales process for paid ads, getting a set on board, the closer, productizing fulfillment, building out the SLPs for client success managers, setting up project management tools, having good tracking in place as well, because that's what's going to make the next level feel safe. Not because there's not going to be any pressure, but because the pressure has actually somewhere to go, right? The pressure gets distributed into systems and people instead of sitting entirely on your chest, right? And here's another thing you need to realize, right? Your old identity right now is actually using the pressure to keep you stuck, okay? Because when pressure gets high, you run back to what you know and what feels safe and familiar again, right? And that's why you justify in your mind that you should just go back to doing cold outreach, for example, or doing the fulfillment by yourself, or run ads when you're at X amount of revenue, or just hire at a later point. And that is the old identity getting its way, okay? The old version of you is not trying to make you rich, okay? It's trying to keep you safe and stuck at what feels safe and familiar, essentially, which is where you've been at for a couple of months, right? Even if, what feels familiar sucks, you don't like it, right? It's stressful. And that's why you can feel miserable doing cold outreach, but you still go back to doing it, right? Because it's all subconscious habits, right? And subconsciously, that pain is kind of familiar to you, right? Ads, for example, that's a new level of pain. Delegating, hiring, leadership, like that's all a new level of pain that you haven't experienced yet. And you need to learn how to hold them without collapsing. And so here's basically what I would do if I were you, okay? Every time you feel some sort of pressure, don't instantly act, okay? Don't instantly, go back to cold outreach and stop the ads or anything like that. You need to pause because you don't want to act emotionally, right? And so that's when, for example, a client is nagging on Slack and she starts insulting you, for example, you don't reply instantly. If someone insults you, then it basically just fucks with your ego, and then you're gonna make emotional responses, right? And that's basically what you don't want, right? So that's why you need to take a break and put your ego to the side and don't think emotionally about it, okay? Because at the end of the day, the only thing you can actually control is your state and your actions, right? And when you control those consistently on a day-to-day basis, the outcome starts reflecting that. And trust me, boys, like it's gonna take time to scale up because you won't be able to go from 10K a month responsibility to 100K a month responsibility in the matter of a month. Simply because the amount of pressure and stress your body can handle, it only goes little by little by little by little, right? Like, for example, if the version of me like 1.5 years ago was at 5-10K a month, would be dealing with the amount of pressure and stress I'm dealing with right now, he would crawl up in a ball and probably go cry, right? And so the whole point of this video, boys, is very, very simple, right? If you want to hit 100K a month, you need to stop being such emotionally enslaved to the physical reality, okay? Stop letting Stripe tell you who you are, right? Stop letting the results of the ads tell you who you are and define you, and let that impact your sense of self-worth. Because the outcomes are just feedback, right? It's not your identity. It's simply just feedback, right? It's not your sense of self-worth. Your job is simply to become the operator who can hold more pressure. And you do that by detaching from the outcome, regulating your nervous system, and focusing on the next controllable action, right? As I mentioned, step by step by step, and you're eventually going to be able to hold the amount of pressure that the 100K a month version of you would be able to, right? Because a guy who hits 100K a month is not the guy who panics every time reality doesn't instantly validate him. It's a guy who can hold the vision, ignore the external noise, build the actual machine that requires to hit that level, and keep taking those sort of aligned actions before the physical outcomes has caught up to that. Okay, that's the whole game. You have to detach from the outcome, build the operation, hold the pressure, and let reality catch up. So that was pretty much it for this video, boys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Peace.